Let's see how easy it is to create your own year in review using this 2018 template. The template is made with masks, so you don't really have to cut anything in your photos to match the shapes. You simply have to insert your photos in the correct group. Each month has a group. Here you have the January, which is the top of the two. And inside you have a mask layer, and here is a placeholder. You simply have to activate the placeholder layer and add your photo above this layer. In fact, your photo will simply cover this placeholder. So let's start by opening our first photo. I already picked my photos and identified them by month. So here is the first photo I will be using. It's in the wrong orientation, so I can rotate it left. Now I can copy. I can go to Edit, Copy, go to my template, and having again my January placeholder, I will paste as a new layer. So I can go under Edit, Paste as a new layer, and my image is here. It's been placed by default in the center. I need to move it, but I cannot use the Move tool because being part of a group, everything will be moving together. So I have to activate the Pick tool. So grabbing the center of my Pick tool, I will move my photo so it shows in the mask. I can align it. I could rotate it if I needed to. And that's it. So now I can close my January photo. And of course, I don't need to keep it. Now let's go to February. So I will open the second photo I have of my two cats. I will copy. I could go again through Edit, Copy, but I can also use the shortcut, which would be Control-C. So on my keyboard, I hit Control-C. Now I will activate my template. Let's go to February. Activate the placeholder. And I will paste as a new layer. Again, I could go through Edit, Paste as a new layer, or I could use Control-L or Control-V. Both shortcuts will work. And now I can try to center. Notice that my photo is quite large, so not a problem. Since my Pick tool is active, I can make sure that the scale mode is selected, and I can size down my photo to fit in the space I have available. And I can align it as I want. Maybe I'll resize a bit. Be careful that whenever you are using the Pick tool to resize an image, especially if you want to keep the proportions correct, make sure that the scale mode is set and that you change the size or you resize using a corner handle. If you are to use a side or top bottom handle, it will distort your photo. Now let's go to March. And you can see how much snow we had. So I can copy, Control-C on my keyboard. Find the March placeholder. Paste as a new layer. And I will move my photo to show inside the March template. And again, I will resize it. and I can realign it if I want it more on the left or the right. And I can keep going like this for all 12 months. I will be back. Now that I'm finished placing all the photos for all the months, it's time to add some background. If you're doing scrapbooking, you probably have already set of papers that you can use, and the template being the size of a standard scrapbook page, you just have to copy and paste whatever paper you have. However, if you don't have scrapbook papers and you just want to create this as a poster or a single page, you can do so just using the supplies in PaintShop. First, you will go down in the layers palette to the background layer, and then you will be able to choose the color in your materials palette. So let's say that I will take a blue, medium blue color. I can just activate the flood fill tool and flood fill this background layer. From there, I can add a texture, possibly using the effects, texture effect, texture, and use one of the textures that are there. Asphalt is a texture that is there by default, and it could add some interesting effects. So let's preview on the image, and you can see how it adds that texture. You can increase the size or reduce it, and the depth can be also changed according to what you want to get. The deeper the depth value here, the more intense the texture will be. So I'll just go down in size and in depth, so I will have a more subtle texture. At this point, I'm pretty happy. If I want to change the color of the months because maybe the colors are not contrasting enough with the background of the photo, like for here, we have the month of May, and you can't read it because there is white where the month is. So I can change that. I can go to the month of May in this case, and here is the month written in uppercase, and this is the text. I will now lock the transparency and choose another color that could fit well with my theme, and maybe I will use a red just so it's contrasting, a dark red. And with the transparency locked, I can activate my paintbrush and increase the size. I can go to 400, 600, and just brush on the word itself, and you'll see it will just color without having to paint the edges individually. That is because of the locked transparency, and I can unlock it afterward. If I want to change the color for other month, I can just repeat the same thing. So for August, it is visible but a little harder to read, so I will do the same thing for August. So I will go with the uppercase, that's the title, lock the transparency, and brush over the word. So I can use the same color for all the months, or I can use different colors that will just be suitable, either matching or contrasting the photo or the rest of the project. At this point, you might want to save your work as a temporary name. So I will do that. I will save as, and I will say here version 1, and I will save it in the PSP image format. Now let's stretch out this layers palette so we can see it better. If you are happy with the way your images are, you can now merge all the groups. So you can activate the top layer of the group and right click, then merge the group. So now you have a single image, and you can repeat that for all the groups. Merge group. And finally, if you want to add some shadow effects, you can merge all together the titles and the pieces for each word. Or, even faster, you can hide the background layer and right-click, merge, visible, or you can actually merge visible to a new layer if you want to keep those layers separate, which is another way to go in recent versions of PaintShop. So I can go merge visible to new layer, and I can hide all the previous individual layers. So they will be kept in case I want to tweak my project later. So everything is merged, and on this merged layer I can activate it. I can unhide my background so I have an idea of the look. Go to Effects, 3D Effects, and drop Shadow. At this point, since it is a fairly large project, I can certainly go to 20 pixels vertical and 20 pixels horizontal. I can see here what it will look like, and I can even see on my project how this shadow is added. If I find it's too much, I can reduce it to 10. And that is it. So it will look like pieces of cardboard or thick paper added onto my background. So this might be enough for my project for the year in review of 2018. If I do want to add some specific text, I can always add a layer and add some text around this area. That's really up to you. And remember that even though a picture is worth 1,000 words, you might not remember, or you might actually want to share the story behind each of those photos. So you can probably create a second page with all those stories. Someone will love to read it. So now it's your turn to create your year in review layout for 2018. Have fun!